Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurudevo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Twameva Mata Chapita Twameva Bandhuscha Sakha Twameva Vidyatravittam Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 15, number 21.
Yes. Atma gnotridhana buddhir vidya kama karma hihi dipita prajwalatyesha dvare shrontra diphi sada. Placed like fuel in the fire of the self, burning brightly by ignorance, desire and action, the intellect always shines forth through the door-like apertures called ears, etc.
That's an interesting one. Would you read the English one more time for me?
Placed like fuel in the fire of the self, burning brightly by ignorance, desire and action, the intellect always shines forth through the door-like apertures called ears, etc.
So what I think he means with this one is drawing on this metaphor we get in Gita of the Vedic sacrifice, where Brahman is the fire, Brahman is the one offering the sacrifice, and basically it's the metaphor of the sense objects come into the fire of the mind. So the idea here is the self striking the subtle intellect, then refracts. The subtle intellect acts like a prism, and it refracts into the individual knower, the sense perceptions, knowing, and the objects of perception. This becomes easy to understand if you just go to the dream state. In the dream state, my one unified mind first assumes a state of complete undifferentiation. We call it deep sleep. What Mandukya calls prajnana dhanam, a homogeneous mass. of pure mind. Then in the dream state, that refracts, and I get a dream body, which becomes a locus of perception. It's from the dream body that I perceive the dream world, a dream ego. And then I see the dream world of people, places, things, and conditions. And inside I have feelings and thoughts, reactions to that world. But all of it is just that prajnana ghanam, that homogeneous mass of mind refracting. So though it seems like I am here, maybe inside my body, and the world is out there, and inside I have feelings and thoughts about it all. It's just the play of mind. It's just consciousness appearing as name and form. Now, I was working with a student yesterday, and we were in some of the later verses of v21. And the first idea we worked on is the self-evidence of the self. You do not see, hear, taste, touch, or smell yourself. You don't emote yourself. You don't think yourself. Yet you are not unknown. How do you know you are you? The self is self-evident. Listen carefully. Again, language fails us. It's the only activity the self ever does. And then I said to this person, now look at the table. You see the table? Yeah. That is the self-evidence of Brahman. Who is it who's seeing the table? Brahman. What are the senses made up of? Brahman. What's the table made up of? Brahman. All of it. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is verily Brahma. Next verse.
Dakshinakshipradhaneshu yada buddhirvicheshtate vishayir vishadipta hyatmagni sthula bhuktada. The fire of the self is the experiencer of gross objects in the waking state, when the intellect, ignited by the objects which are in the place of oblations, functions among the senses, of which the right eye is the chief.
Okay, so again, he's talking about the Vedic sacrifice. He's drawing on again imagery that's used in Mandukya, where the center of the perception of Vaishvanara, the Vishwa, the waking state world, is the right eye. That's metaphor. Swamiji would say, okay, our two eyes, of the two eyes, the more dominant one for most people is the right eye. I don't know whether or not that's true. But again, the whole point of it all, Brahman is the knower of the field in every field of experience. In the most ordinary waking state, mind state, you are still you. And whatever you see, even if the mind labels it as good and bad, just and unjust, right or wrong. It's just the stuff of consciousness appearing as name and form. Doesn't change into name and form. Just like if Aditi and I go into the bathroom and stand next to each other and look into the mirror, oh, the mirror is dualistic. There's two of us in the mirror. No. The mirror is one, bimba. Doesn't change its nature whether one person looks into the mirror or two people look into the mirror. Because there's nothing really in the mirror. I can't reach in and pull the reflection out of the mirror. Seen, but not real. Take it easy. Don't worry. It's all okay. Nothing is going to harm you. Oh, but the politics, blah, blah, blah. The terrible things in Kashmir, what's going on in Ukraine, and Trump. Don't worry. Take it easy. It's all going to be okay. Why? Because the substratum, the stuff out of which it's all made, never really undergoes a change. And it's only because of ignorance that I take the name and forms as real. Again, going back to the dream state. We can say that sleep is the ignorance of myself as the waker. When I do not know that I'm sound asleep, then the phenomena of the dream world to the dreamer seem very real. I can be frightened or anxious or excited in the dream. But upon awakening, I see it's just the play of the mind. There's nothing substantial. And what Shankara is thundering is, this is no different. Sarvamaya, Sarvamana. All is Maya. The illusory power of the infinite. Reality. It's all this. Next one.
Yante tu havimshiti rupadi grahane smaran aragati tvesha atmagno jagrato shana lipyate. One does not get attached to the impurities of the waking state if, at the time of perceiving colors, etc., one remembers that oblations are being offered to the fire of the self, and remains free from desire and aversion.
So I had a student who had just returned from an 8-day Vipassana retreat. And what he was sharing with me is that his mind got really quiet and his sense of body just dissolved. And there was no person there. There was just sounds being heard, just sights being seen. He had penetrated into the nothingness of the individuality. It's a direct experience, not just theoretically, but as direct experience. So this is what Shankar is driving at. Sounds pretty groovy, Jim. How do I get there? Abhyasa Vairagya. Practice and an intense spirit of renunciation. Let go. And I'm reminded of the story of the king and the queen. It's in it's Chudala, and it's in both Tripura Rahasya and Yoga Vasishtha. Same story appears in a slightly different form. So they're king and a queen. They decide they want self-realization, and she goes deep and gets it. He says, I'm going to give up my kingdom. But then the idea of ritual comes to him. So, wifey, you take care of the kingdom. I'm going to run off to the forest and do religious ritual. So he gets a little hot in his ritual objects, and he does ritual for 12 years. Still has no peace. So Chudala, this is all literary device. The desire for siddhis arises in her. And she realizes, he's never going to listen to a woman, especially his wife. So she changes herself into Kumbha, which means pot, literally. A young Brahmin sage goes out to the forest. He says, oh, look at this sage, worthy to be worshipped. Basically says, how can I find peace? Kumbha says, you got to give up everything. Well, I've already done it. I left my kingdom. Kumbha says, it's not enough. All right, I'm going to give up my hut. Kumbha says, it's not enough. All right, I'll give up doing ritual on all my ritual objects. Kumbha says, it's not enough. So then he says, okay, I'm going to give up all my clothes. I'll be sky-clad. I'll run around naked. Kumbha says, it's not enough. He says, what's left? Okay, I'm going to go jump off a cliff and give up my body. And Kumbha says, it's not enough. Now, note that the king had this incredible sense of willingness to give up everything. And then Kumbha says, you must give up the mind. How do I give up the mind? I quit investing truth or reality into any thought. Take up the mantra, I cannot think a real thought. No thought is real, including the one I just thought it. Thought arises, you go, nope. Oh, I think I understand. Nope. Yeah, but what? Nope. I think I'll do Buddhism instead of Vedanta. Nope. Give up mind itself. And in English, there's this great book written in the 14th century called The Cloud of Unknowing. I love that word. That's what we learn to do is unknow the mind. It's different than not knowing. Not knowing is ignorance. Unknowing is a renunciation of my belief in the reality, the truth of any thought. Now, the cool thing, after the king achieves steady wisdom, does he march off to the mountains and live as a hermit in a cave? No. He and wifey go back to the palace and he does his duty. He was born a Raja. He's got a job to do. Get over your cheap self and do your duty. Because no external has really anything to do with happiness or aversion. Get over it. Next verse.
Manase tu krihe vyaktaha so vidya karma vasanam pashyanste jasa atmoktaha swayam jyoti prakashita. Manifested in the abode of the modifications of the mind in dream, and witnessing the impressions produced by actions due to ignorance, the self is called Tejasa. It is then the self-effulgent witness.
So here he's using the language of Mandukya. In the waking state world, it is Vaishwanara. Nara is a person, the person who knows the Vishwa. Vaishwanara. So now he's saying, but the knower of the dream state We call that person Taijasa, the dreamer. What does the dreamer do? The dreamer knows the dream. Now, don't get too involved with the dream world. Some people get all caught up into analyzing dreams. For some people, their ability to operate coherently and with value in the waking state world is very good. So they run to a dream world, the world of imagination. Swamiji used to say, dreams are the vomit of the mind. They're the undigested impressions of the waking state. When analyzed from the waking state, there can be a little value. Essentially, what we do is every character, everything in the dream is part of my own psyche. So it can be a doorway into what is my unconscious doing. But don't get too involved with it. Swamiji would say, when you vomit into the toilet bowl, do you then get down on your hands and knees and go through the pieces of vomit? Yes. And what you're likely to discover, if you're a meditator, you won't need to be working out your issues in the dream state quite so much. They're resolved far more efficiently in meditation. But what he's ultimately going to talk about is the mind moves through these three conditions: waking, dream, deep sleep. Vaishwanana, Taijasa, Prajna. That's just chitta, the stuff of mind. And in the dream state, by the way, we can lump all altered mind states, hypnotism, drug experiences, etc. But something there is that's the illuminator of the waking state and the dream state. Me. And in Mandukya, in the first chapter, the scripture talks about the three states of mind and that they are illumined by, contained within the Turiya, the fourth consciousness itself. Second chapter, Gaudapada, the great glosser on it, said, well, actually, we don't have three mind states, we only have two: dream and deep sleep. Daytime dream and nighttime dream. Slight differences, but essentially the same. My spiritually dreaming mind projects the fake person, Jim or Aditi, and a fake world separate from me, and issues Next verse.
Vishaya vasana vapi chodyante neva karmabhi yada buddho tada gyeyaha pragya atma hyananya drika. In deep sleep, when neither objects nor their impressions are produced in the intellect by actions, the self, cognizant neither of objects nor of their impressions, is known to be prajna.
So prajna, this is again the term that Mandukya uses for deep sleep. What is deep sleep? The stuff of mind is folded up in pure ignorance and has within it the seed form of our vasanas, our impressions. What do we mean by that? So Aditi is a dancer. I'm a singer. But when we're in deep sleep, what do you know about deep sleep? Upon awakening, you say, I knew nothing. When I wake up, my experience, I knew nothing. So our experience of deep sleep is the same. Ignorance. But I don't wake up being able to do classical Indian dance. She doesn't wake up being able to sing German Lieder. So the mind is not gone. It's in a seed form. We are not unconscious in deep sleep. Close your eyes. Are you blind? No. You are seeing the back of your eyelids, which occlude your perception of the world, such as deep sleep. It covers. What I see is the darkness of the mind covered up. But you were there, and the proof of it is you can remember it. Because the rememberer and the experiencer are the same entity. It's so simple. Aditi, did I sleep well last night?
I don't know.
She does not know. Why? She wasn't there. Did you sleep well last night?
Mhm.
Yes, no?
Yes,
Yes. How do you know?
I was there.
You were there. Eternally witnessing the stuff of the mind forming into Vishwa, the waker, the dreamer, Taijasa, the deep sleeper, Prajna, cycling through that. Now, some people get very confused because the Upanishads will say the self never sleeps. And I can remember at camps, people would say, oh, Swamiji never goes to sleep. Swamiji never sleeps. The man wake all night. And that's true and not true. Swamiji slept. He didn't sleep much. He only slept 4 hours a night. Took a nap. What was his experience in deep sleep? I know nothing. But the self does not disappear in deep sleep. Another way to think of it, Do you see that there's a phone in my hand? Yes. You can have knowledge that there is something there. Do you see that there's nothing in my hand? Yes. So you can have knowledge of the absence of something. Right now we're in the waking state. Do you know you're perceiving objects, thoughts, and feelings?
Yes.
In deep sleep, through memory, oh, I must have slept soundly. I cannot remember knowing anything. I know the absence of ego, perception, of thought, all folded up. Now, don't worry about this too much. Nobody ever got enlightened in the deep sleep state. Next verse.
Mano buddhi nidrayanam ya avasthaha karma choditaha chaitanye neva bhasyante ravineva khatadayaha. The conditions of the mind, the intellect, and the senses produced by actions are illumined by pure consciousness, like jars and other things by the sun.
Yes. So the sun shines on a jar, a pot, a piece of wood, a lake. It's sthita, it's still in the sky, always illuminating. So also I go nowhere. I do nothing. I am. I shine. I know. Waking state world passes in front of me. The dream world passes in front of me. The deep sleep world passes in front of me. Listen carefully. In samadhi, even deep sleep is gone. But I remain. Then when the mind returns, because I am the substratum of the presence and the absence of the mind's functions. The mind goes, oh, I get it. There's no one there but the ground of being. I am Atma. The self is not a puny little person. It's Brahman. Next verse.
Tatraivam sati buddhirgya atmabhasavabhasayan karta tasam yadarthasta murhere bhabhidhiyate. As it is so, illumining by its light the functions of the mind which exist for it, i.e., pure consciousness, the self is regarded by the ignorant only as an agent of those functions.
So the ignorant person thinks that consciousness is a possession, that my mind has consciousness in it, that I have states of consciousness. Actually, that's inaccurate. all of the things illumined by the self change and are fundamentally what we call jada, inert. One thought doesn't see another thought. My nose doesn't know a feeling. Even when I went, okay, my finger's going to touch my hand. My finger's knowing my hand. No, I know the sensations. So this is why Swamiji used to use this very powerful example of what he called spiritual algebra. What is the mind? Mind is the awareness of thought flow. And by thought flow, we mean a vritti, a movement, a perception, a feeling, vimarsha, a deliberation, content. The content, though seen, is inherently inert. It has no self-luminosity. Are you okay?
Yeah.
So, the awareness that illumines the content is sthita, still. It never undergoes any change. Now, what we need to do is prove this for ourselves. Keep checking out that self. See, does my self have qualities? Do I think or do I know thinking? Am I happy or do I know happiness? Any thoughts on this? She returned like the moon traveling through the sky. Next one.
सर्वज्ञोऽप्यत एव स्यात् स्वेन भासावभासयन् सर्वं सर्वक्रियाहेतो सर्वकृत्वं तथात्मनः. Therefore also, illumining everything by its own light, the self is considered to be all-knowing. Similarly, it is regarded as the accomplisher of everything, as it is the cause of all actions.
Yes. So we get these terms like omniscient, omnipotent. How can I be God? I am not all-knowing. I don't speak Russian. I don't know what's going on in Timbuktu. That's not what it means. It means wherever and whenever something is known, it is Brahman that is the knower. Do you know what you did yesterday? Yeah, who knew it? I do. Now, what I did yesterday is different than what Aditi did yesterday. I know the room from my viewpoint. She knows the room from her viewpoint. I know my thoughts and feelings and memories. She knows her thoughts and feelings and memories. but in a still mind, when you notice the knower, Chidananda Rupa, you are of the form of this consciousness. And when I notice the knower, I have the same experience. Self in me is not like the self in her. It's the same consciousness, illuminating the world through that particular locus of perception, and from this one as well. It is the knower of the field in all fields, as Krishna says in Gita. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
There are two verses together.
Okay.
Sopadhishchaiva mat mokto nirupakyo nupadhikaha nishkalo nirguna shuddhas manobakacha napnutaha chetano vapi karta karto kato gataha patho muktastatha cheko neka shuddho nyathetiva. The self with adjuncts is thus described, but it is without adjuncts, indescribable, without parts, without qualities, and pure, which the mind and speech do not reach. For philosophers differ in their conceptions about the self. Different conceptions are: the self is conscious, non-conscious, an agent, a non-agent, all-pervading, not all-pervading, bound, free, one, many, pure, not pure, and so on.
Is that the end of it?
That's the end.
So in the end, it is avyupadesham. Words fall short. Upadesha means to talk about it, to teach it. All our philosophies at best point. They do not define. So Swamiji would say, go there, meet me there. Words end. Beyond philosophical discussion. Listen very carefully. The Vedanta is a very beautiful, systematized philosophy of knowledge. It's not real. The Vedanta as a philosophy is not real. It's very powerful. It is like the thorn that's used to remove the splinter from your finger. And at the end, it's also the Vedanta will remove your ignorance. But in the end, it's not that I know Vedanta philosophy. It's better than Buddhism. It's not as good as Sufism. And all the words and the thoughts and the ideas. Drown the mind. Soak the mind in this. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Next verse.
Aprapyeva nivartante vachodhibhi sahevavtu nirgunatva triya bhava visheshanam bhavataha. Words with the mind turn back without reaching it, as it is without qualities, without actions, and without attributes.
You read my mind. Whatever you and I can say about the self falls short. Comes to my mind, I'm sure I've shared this with you before. At a camp, one of the delegates came up to Swamiji and says, Swamiji, we need to have a talk. What is there to talk about? Talking is stupid. Next verse.
Drishtam hitva smritim tasmin sarvagrashcha tamastya jet sarvatrikyo tishayukto din krishchar varam yatha. One should give up the waking state, its impressions, i.e., dream, and deep sleep, which causes everything to merge in itself. The self, the witness of them all, is then in the nature of pure consciousness, like the sun which has dispelled the darkness of the night.
So, by giving up the three states of mind, we give up our fascination for our belief in, we quit reifying them. And in an auspicious moment, all of the attachments have been renounced. The mind itself ends. What's left? Just luminosity of the self. Now, does this mean I have to not see the world? No. If you think the rainbow is a solid bridge in the sky, when you know it is just light reflecting in the moisture in the air, you've destroyed the rainbow. When you discern that the water in the desert is a mirage, you destroyed the water in the sun. Mirage, massage. Seeing, but not being. Next verse.
Rupasmrityantakarartha pratyaya saya gochara sa evatma samo drishta sarvabhuteshu sarvagaha. Illumining the modifications which have for their objects waking, dream, and deep sleep, the all-pervading self is the same in all beings and is the witness of them all.
Yes. So my waking state is different than Aditi's. My dreams are different than hers. How well I sleep may be different than how well you sleep. But the knower in me, the knower in you is the same. It's not the self in me is like the self in you. It's not little pieces or globs of awareness running around. The self in me is the self. Kevala, alone, solitary. There's only one of us here. Oh God. Next verse.
Atma buddhi manaschakshu vishaya loka sangmatma vichitro jayate buddhe pratyayo jnana lakshanaha. Caused by ignorance, the diverse functions of the intellect, called knowledge, come to exist when the body, the intellect, the mind, the eye, objects, and light happen to coexist with the self.
So when the mind is thoughting, when vrittis occur, the world appears. And it seems like I, the individual, know stuff. But I love the metaphor that Gaudapada uses in the 4th chapter of the Mandukya Karika, the alata, the firebrand. Or a modern day example, the sparkler on the 4th of July or Diwali. You make a circle at night with the sparkler. The circle is seen. When I stop moving the sparkler, where does the circle go? It doesn't go inside the sparkler. It was the tip of the sparkler. It was an optical illusion. When it moved, the circle appeared. So also, what is the subtle intellect? It is in fact the movement of thought. Once that thoughting starts, first thought, ahankara, I'm a person. Then buddhi, mind, sense perception. You can make all sorts of fancy shapes. But it's just the tip of the sparkler. And what Gaudapada is implying is stop the mind and you stop the world. And even then, when the world starts up again, the mind is transformed. It knows its own unreality. Next verse.
2 verses again. Vividyasmatasma swamatman vindya shuddham param padam drishtaram sarvabhutastham samam sarvabhayatigam Samastam sarvagam shantam vimalam vyoma vatsithatam nishkalam nishtrayam sarvam nityam dvandve vivarjitam. One should discriminate from these the self, which is the witness, free from all fear, from all adjuncts, free from impurity, firm like the ether, without parts and without actions, and know it to be the pure supreme Brahman, the same in all beings, the all-pervading whole, the all-comprehensive principle, which is eternally free from all duality.
So this is our practice. Constant discrimination between the real and the unreal, between the self and the not self. Again, using the paradigm we get in Yoga Vasishta. Who am I? What is this world? How has it come about? Who am I? Aham Brahmasmi. I am consciousness itself. What is this world? It too is nothing but consciousness. How has it come about? Imagination. Nothing really is destroyed. Nothing is really created. We practice this knowledge. Jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge. And in Atmabodha, Shankara talks about the kataka nut powder. Remember that metaphor? So the kataka nut powder you put into the jar of water that's got silt suspended in it. The surface tension of the kataka nut powder makes all the silt collect and drop to the bottom, and you can decant the pure water. Our modern day example is detergent. My clothes are dirty. I put them in the washing machine, and what do? Add more dirt. Special dirt. Detergent. What does the detergent do? It loosens the dirt that's there. And on the rinse cycle, both the dirt and the detergent are gone. So this practice of discrimination is mental detergent because you need to be brainwashed. Now, drop the thoughts, the dirt, and drop even the jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Okay, we'll end here today. What verse are we on for next time?
38.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru